teacher any longer. Disregarding the message that was reported, Jesus said to the synagogue official, "Do not be afraid, just have faith." He did not allow anyone to accompany him inside except Peter, James, and John, and the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue official, he caught sight of a commotion and people weeping and wailing. So he went in and said to them, "Why this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they ridiculed him. Then he put them all out. He took along the child's father and mother, and those who were with him, and entered the room where the child was. He took the child by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." The girl, a child of 12, arose immediately and walked around. At that, they were utterly astounded. He gave strict orders that no one should know this, and said that she should be given something to eat. There was a woman afflicted with hemorrhages there. For years she had suffered greatly at the hands of many doctors and had spent all that she had. Yet she was not helped, but only grew worse. She had heard about Jesus and came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak. She said, "But if I touch his clothes, I shall be cured." Immediately her flow of blood dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Jesus, aware at once that power went out of him, turned around in the crowd and asked, "Who has touched me?" But his disciples said to Jesus, "You see how the crowd is pressing upon you, and yet you ask, 'Who has touched you?'" He looked around to see who had done it. The woman, realizing what had happened to her, approached in fear and trembling. She fell down before Jesus and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. You have been cured of your affliction." The Gospel of the Lord. I sense a kind of pallor, wishy-washiness, blasé. And yet we're singing songs of Alleluia. Very well done, I must say. Very well done, and raising us up. And yet we all seem to be in the doldrums. Could it be the weather? Could the weather, and who could blame you? Could the weather have been affecting us? But this is the time when we come in to this house of prayer, this gospel that we hear of healing and uplifting, that we should in ourselves also be lifted up and have some response of joy and anticipation. Recently, a cousin of mine sent me a YouTube of Lou Holtz. You know who Lou Holtz is? Do you know who Lou Holtz is? The former football coach of... Well, he gave the commencement address at Notre Dame this year. And I recommend it to you. You're spared. I am not going to give it to you. You are spared. But please do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube, Lou Holtz 2015 commencement address at Notre Dame, and be inspired. Even if my homily doesn't get you, Lou Holtz will. It is about humor, excitement, gladness, anticipation, hope. Good advice for all of us, regardless of our situation, whether we graduated from college this year or we graduated from college maybe 1,000 years ago. I can relate. It is still uplifting and exciting. Lou Holtz, Holtz, 2015 commencement address Franciscan University, Steubenville, do yourself a favor. Perhaps the commodity that we need most, and not only in our grads, but also in our own lives, is the commodity of hope and the desire for success. We all want to be successful. And to achieve success at something, we have to put something of ourselves into it, or else it's just not going to happen. Our very life, our very soul has to go into our goal. And often, as a result, we'll feel drained. I'm sure what most of us need and want after a grueling task is a nap, because we're so tired. And that's also true with healing. The healing that we read about and hear about today. It can be exhausting and painful, especially for the healer. The healing act itself is often an occasion of suffering. We can't take away the suffering of another without somehow, in some degree, entering into that suffering ourselves. If only by just trying to understand and trying to grow close to the one who is suffering. The healer must also suffer. Those of you who have been on a journey with someone who is ill, who have partnered them in their suffering, know exactly what this means. Sometimes what leads people to become healers is having the experience of being sick ourselves. Healers need to be very conscious of their own vulnerability. They themselves are vulnerable, and that is the part of the reason why healers themselves also need to be healed. And who is the most divine healer is Jesus. He took the pain of those who were suffering upon himself, and he suffered with each one. Even when he is surrounded by people and someone touched him, he was healed. He knew it. Why? Because each cure took something out of him. In the words of the gospel, the power went out of him, and he felt it going out of himself. It was this power and the faith of the sick person that resulted in the cure. Every time Jesus healed someone, it took something out of him, and his greatness was that he was able and prepared to pay the price of helping others. That's a lesson for us, my friends. If we follow the footsteps of Jesus Christ, and every single one of us must be prepared to do just that, we have to also be able to give ourselves to one another in healing and in help. Each of us can do some healing. We're all capable and possible for us. We're all allowed to become the instruments of Jesus Christ, the instruments of God's peace and God's healing. We may not be able to cure, but it is within our power to care. And to care is a very significant thing in the process of healing. We may dress the wound, but it's God who does the healing. However, each act of caring must cost us something. The power will go out of us, but we need never to become run down. If we maintain contact with the Lord, the power will continually to be renewed and restored within us. And that's the key, to maintain contact with the Lord. We do so most effectively when we participate in the Eucharist. Some people possess a self-confidence and an optimism which acts as a tonic for the sick. Energy goes out of them and enters into others. Through their touch, their look, Their mere presence, they give a gift to others. And they're happy in helping others. And helping another is to heal another. I don't think there's one person in this room, in this church, that isn't wounded. But we tend to hide our woundedness. The woman who came to Jesus was deeply wounded. In her case, the wound was visible. But as you know, and I know, even for some of us, we can be wounded without showing it on the outside. We carry invisible wounds, don't we? We carry often feelings of rejection and failure, maybe worthlessness, loneliness, bitterness, and hostility. That can apply to every single one of us. So we all can say we are in some way in need of healing. And the reverse is also true. All of us can be healers as well. Our lives are continually touching those of other people. I think it's wonderful that we don't have individual chairs in church, that we have pews where we have to sit together, close, so that we can, whether we like it or not, be touching. With a little sympathy, you can heal a wounded heart. With a little care, you can ease a troubled mind. With a little of your time, you can ease the pain of loneliness for someone. For time to time, each of us should stop and ask ourselves, what goes out of me? What do I exude? Through my words, through my actions, in my spirit? Is it hurt that I am emitting, or is it healing? Healing is not only a task for the individual. Through it, we can create a community where people can get together, such as we, work together, support each other, and the healing then becomes a part of our everyday life. And then, every day we can live in imitation of Jesus Christ, our divine healer. The point is, each of us is capable of doing some healing. Because we have eyes that can see, ears that can hear, tongues that can speak, hands that can touch, and above all, a heart that can love. We can pray and mean with every fiber of our being, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Make me an instrument of your healing power. Where there is hatred, let me so love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. I remember one Christmas, I think it was before I even became a teenager, but I remember it vividly. My parents gave me, I think they gave all of us, but they just said it was for you, and it was the Book of Knowledge, all the volumes. You remember the Book of Knowledge? There are 20 volumes. By this time I read every one. But there was one quote in there that I remember memorizing, and I'll share it with you because it's true for every single one of us. I expect to pass through this world but once. any good that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer it, nor neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. I will never have the opportunity. And that's true for all of us. My sisters and brothers, while we have the time, let us do good. May the Lord grant you peace in ways that the world cannot.